going to meet with some very senior level individuals in these organizations. And I like to share with them how Learnit's implementing them internally. And we are. And it's far beyond just, writing better emails or blogs. We use AI as, I use it to help develop comp plans as a thought partner. I'll ask AI to interview me and challenge me on some of my theories. We look at all the processes that we have and we say, how can AI make this at least 20% better? How can we save time and reinvest that time back into helping our customers and into product development? So there are so many different ways that I probably drive my team nuts talking about so much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Damon Lembi, who is the CEO of Learnit. Damon, welcome to the podcast.
Well, it's an honor to be here, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. Why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about you, about the company, what you guys are all about, who you help, and any context you'd like to share.
Sure. I'm Damon Lembi, and I'm the CEO of Learnit, which is a live learning platform. And we've upskilled over 2 million people over the past 3 decades. And our customers turn to us when they're looking to onboard new managers. And we all know that's a different skill set. So we help them with skills like whether it's coaching, active listening, how to have difficult conversations. Or other times customers come to us when their employees are frustrated because they don't feel like they're getting enough personal development. So we work with whether it's their HR team or even in business units, and we design programs, work with them together, we collaborate with them together, design programs, help promote those programs, and roll them out throughout their organization.
Awesome. It sounds to me, just of course, correct me if I'm wrong here, sounds to me like it's really looking at the leadership executive level to make sure that everything always runs smoothly. If it's the onboarding, if it's the management, if it's the upskilling, if it's the training, all across the board there.
Yeah, we do it all across the board. I would say that's a great question. I would say our sweet spot is new through middle managers. That's our sweet spot. Because as you know, middle managers have probably the most challenging job out of everybody. They're stretched so thin from executives on down to the people that are reporting to them. We absolutely do work with senior executives as well. We don't do any coaching, so not necessarily a lot in the C-level space. It's all live learning, either Zoom or in person is what we do. But our sweet spot really is the new to middle managers.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you for the clarification there. And I would love to hear, how did this idea with Learnit come about? I know that there are so many, you mentioned 3 decades, and virtual learning or online learning of any type is so new and people are getting accustomed to it now, but that wasn't the case so long ago. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
So basically the story is in the 90s, I'm in San Francisco. My family was a really large real estate company, and my dad, we had a bunch of apartment buildings and hotels, and he was ahead of his time. Early 90s, computers were just coming out, and he wanted to digitize our portfolio. So he took a class somewhere. He hated it, and he said, there's got to be a better way to do it. He reached out to the only guy he knew who was the CFO of the savings loan we had in the 80s. And he said, I want to come up with a computer training company, and I want the classes to be short, impactful, and fun. And that's really where Learnit started back in June of 1995 as a computer training company. For me, I was a baseball player. I had my dreams set on being a baseball player. I got drafted a couple of times. Unfortunately, my career came to an end. 22 years old. I didn't know what to do. I was too nervous to go the real estate route. So I started as a receptionist at Learnit in June of 1995. Then I started teaching classes, doing sales, and fast forward, here I am 30 years later. I've been the CEO for 25 years, and we kind of evolved from a computer training company to an overall learning and development partner for our customers. I would say probably around 2004. And that's where we started building out our own content. And we do, I would say 75 to 80% soft skills. I hate that word soft skills. I don't think they're soft. And then we still do some, Microsoft Office, Copilot. Most of our business historically was in person. And then, as you all know, during COVID, we pivoted to virtual, and which is very difficult for a lot of our clients at first to think about how do we learn skills like emotional intelligence, self-awareness virtually. But that's been adopted really, really well. And now I'd say 85% of the work we do is virtual. 15% is in person, and we have a small piece of it is the micro learning that helps reinforce what they learn in the training. So in a nutshell,
awesome.
really, that's what we do.
Yeah, no, it's great that you bring that up, and I love how you highlighted I resonate so much with not liking the term soft skills, because they are the skills that allow all the other ones to actually happen. Or hey, you have the proficiency in whatever other hard skill, but if you don't have the soft skills to be able to implement that, then it doesn't really matter. So I never heard anyone say or frame it in a way that I also resonated with. Like, I don't like the term soft because they are not soft. I like that. I like the way that you said that. That's awesome. In fact,
I just want to, like the
yeah.
point you made right there is so key. You could be super technical, you could be the sharpest person around, but if you can't communicate, forget it. You're not going to get anywhere. I mean, and as we evolve with what's going on with AI and everything else, where a lot of the work's going to be automated, being able to communicate, have empathy, creative problem solving, you know, critical thinking, and working alongside AI to be a thought partner is just going to be, I mean, it's going to be basically table stakes.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you think creates a lot of hesitancy for new people that are trying to adopt or implement, learn, or upskill their soft skills? Again, I'll just use the term because it's the term most people are familiar with. When they're trying to upskill their team with the soft skills, but also implementing AI alongside it now, which I'm assuming is something you guys are also doing at Learnit. I think there's so much hesitancy with companies, from companies, to be able to do one, which is already hard enough and they don't know how to do, but also now adding AI on top of it, because if they know that if they don't add it, they're going to be left behind, and the company is likely going to go broke. But then they have to find this balance of like, how do I implement this something that's already kind of tough for us now with an added layer of toughness, which is the AI, and making sure that it happens in the right way as opposed to just implementing it and hope for the best.
I think that's a great question. And I think it starts with organizations needing to learn how to adopt AI to begin with, not necessarily just for learning and development, but as an overall organization. Because, like what you said, if you don't adopt AI, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be out, So you got to figure out how are you going to bring it into your organization, and maybe even look at it like additional team members on your team. So and to do that, it starts with modeling it at the top. You got to have the CEO and the senior level executives all have to buy in. They have to be using ChatGPT or Claude or Super, whatever it is, right? And give people some opportunities to to use these programs, because if you don't, Joe, what's going to happen? They're going to be doing it on their own anyways. They're going to be, and that's when it gets really dangerous because of data privacy if they're just all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you tie that back to learning. Absolutely. Learnit is, our roadmap over the next, 12 to 18 months is incorporating AI as much as possible. AI habit coaches, AI boosters. When students log into our platform, it's going to say, here's what you've learned already based off your role. Here's where you need to go next. And maybe even role playing. I mean, we have a massive amount of stuff to do.
Yeah.
And what you said is so true. It's hard enough to get people to want to sometimes learn new things. And that's because, let's face it, learning is hard. It's not easy. It takes work and it takes consistency.
Yeah.
And some people are afraid of it because it will then require doing things differently and behavior change. And we all know people don't want to change. So layer on AI on top of it, where people have hesitancy anyways, so they think it might cost them their job. I mean, there's a lot that goes in there. But at the end of the day, there's that old saying, are you going to lose your job to AI? I really believe you're going to end up losing your job to people who are power users with AI.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Don't stick your head in the sand, leverage it as much as possible for learning and for everything else.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you there. I think it's such a misconception of like, AI is taking over. And I was like, it kind of is, but not in the way that you think. It's taking over for people who are actually adopting in the right way. And you said something which is I think so key, which is learning is actually hard. People think it's like, yeah, I'm just going to take this new skill and just go ahead with it. But people often forget that disruption always follows intention. So if you want to get something good at something, you're going to be really bad at it first. So
I really like that. I'm going to steal that from you. Disruption follows intention.
Yeah, and I stole that from Myron Golden. Myron Golden is absolutely phenomenal. But I think it's so key because Same thing. You go to the gym, you get weaker before you're stronger. You want to learn something, you are stupid before you are smart, or you're bad before you are good. And then that creates that obstacle that people are like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be easy, but it's never going to be easy. But if you stick with it long enough, then that upskill actually is worth it, and then you can, I guess, crush out the competition in a way. And
I'm with you on that, and that comes to, people always ask me all the time, how do you turn your organization into a learning organization?
Mm.
And one of the ways of doing that is to not making learning and development a checkbox, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we just have it. We don't give people, we don't invest in the opportunity for them to do it during work hours or whatever it is, right? It's something that takes consistency, teamwork, even, people to learn alongside, I believe. And you can't, we will turn down opportunities if a prospect comes to us and says, hey, we have an annual conference, we have a 2-hour time slot, can you do a session for us on emotional intelligence, how to think critically and change management? No, because that's just, you're not going to get any value out of that.
Yeah.
So it takes time, and it's not easy.
Awesome. Good stuff. I wanted to ask you something, which is, clearly you guys are implementing AI internally. Are you also implementing it into the growth of the company? And what I mean by that is looking to expand the business, looking into acquiring more opportunities, looking into creating those opportunities and turning them into, of course, profit or revenue for the company moving forward. Is that something you're also implementing?
100%. When you say implementing it internally, I think you're referring to our customers, but I always refer to it as internally, as Learnit as an organization,
Mhm.
and a lot of times if I want to get in front of our customers and tell them how important it is to, because it's awesome. I get to meet with some very senior level individuals in these organizations.
Mhm.
And I like to share with them how Learnit's implementing them internally, and we are, and it's far beyond just writing better emails or blogs.
Mhm.
We use AI as, like, I use it to help develop comp plans.
Mm.
As a thought partner, I'll ask AI to interview me and challenge me on some of my theories.
Mm.
We look at all the processes that we have, and we say, how can AI make this at least 20% better? How can we
Mm.
save time and reinvest that time back into helping our customers and into product development? So there are so many different ways that I probably drive my team nuts talking about so much. I mean, I really do, because I think that for a smaller organization like Learnit, let's say we have about 40 employees and about 40 instructors as well. It really levels the playing field with some of these much larger organizations,
Mhm.
because you could get a lot done quickly, and you can get a lot of different insights that, without having to hire, a team of data scientists or a
Yeah.
team of marketing experts. If you learn how to use the tools and not just create something in AI and throw it out there, but alongside humans,
Mhm.
so it's embedding it with humans.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. This is a great talk so far, because it's so interesting that people also look at AI as in just a generative lens, which is Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, whatever it might be. But there's also the AI tools that facilitate that process and many other processes alongside of that. So if you have a team where it might not be the biggest team ever, like you said, it can still be on par with all the larger teams that does have that structure if you just implement it or leverage it well, which is so awesome.
And do it now. Do
Yeah.
it now, right? Do it now,
Mhm.
because that is such a advantage that so many companies out there
Yeah.
are still very hesitant. Last thing I'll say about AI, unless you want to talk
Go ahead.
about it,
No.
I'm trying to get my team to think about. I always want them. Like I talk about my book. I have a book called The Learn It All Leader. Having a learn it all mentality, being curious. I want them to look at, like, how can we do things better? But now I ask them to look at it like, how can we do things better leveraging AI? So every conversation, I'm like, okay, have you thought about using so and so for this? Superhuman, perplexity, whatever it is, right? So how do we use these different tools to be better and serve our customers better and
Mhm.
each other better?
Awesome. Amazing stuff. Damon, it seems like there have, of course, been many periods of adaptation and ups and downs with the company. Of course, over 3 decades is not a short time. Uh, and along the way, I'm assuming it hasn't been just rainbows and sunshines. It seems like you guys have something amazing going on now. But talk to me about some of the challenges as you were growing the company, and how are they different from the challenges that you face today when you're still looking at that growth ahead?
Again, great question. So, been at this for 3 years. We've literally been through three economic downturns: dot-com bust, and then 2009, and then COVID. And so, for anybody out there who's either a founder or wants to be a founder of a small business, it isn't all rainbows and sunshine or whatever it is you call it. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of adaptability. And one of the best ways I could give advice to everybody listening is, when you start building your team, build a diverse team around you who have strengths that complement what you do. Don't find a
Mm,
bunch of yes people.
mm,
Find people who have different perspectives, and also delegate and give them authority to be able to do some of the work. I mean, I think it's all about having a great team and great people. And even if it's just a couple
yeah.
people, I mean, hey, the product is going to evolve and change over time. You can sit in your little cube and work on your product all the time. But if you're going to go into business, uh, and say you want to have a co-founder, find somebody that you can really, I want to say, get along with, but also
Mhm,
that will challenge you, right?
mhm,
That will challenge you and isn't afraid to say, "Hey, Damon, you're full of BS. Let's try
yeah.
this differently."
Mhm,
So, in a short, I mean, I have so many stories of overcoming adversity or challenges, and
uh-huh,
running a business over 30 years. But at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to having a great team, knowing how to tap in and leverage them, and
mm,
also not being afraid to look outside of your organization to have mentors.
mm.
And it's okay to say, "Look, I don't know. I need help with
Yeah,
this." I mean, that's what it's all about. And then
yeah.
learn from those and be open minded, be a learn it all instead of a know it all.
Mhm,
I made so many mistakes early on where I overexpanded right around the .com boom, is because I didn't listen to people like my dad,
mm,
and I'm like, we're crushing it. I'm not looking at worst case scenario, and we overexpanded, which
yeah.
almost put us under, but we made it through. And I've learned to not make mistakes like that in the future.
Oh, awesome. Learn it all as opposed to a know it all. Now I'm stealing that one for you. I like that. I like that a lot. And I wanted to ask you a question, Damon, which I've been asking everybody that has been a part of the podcast. So you'll also fall victim of it. But here's a question. I'll actually pre-frame it with something differently, just because of your experience. As you're looking at the company and the trajectory that you're trying to you get to, or the goals that you have, frame it. I want you to think about this question in the frame of, what's the hardest part of growing your business? And tying it into the question that I have, that I've been asking everybody is, let's say you had a magic wand
Mm.
and you could just wave this crazy amazing wand and it can solve just one thing in the company. There are often many priorities that we have, but you can just solve one thing: an obstacle, a challenge, a pain point, whatever it might be. But by solving this one thing, you're able to achieve all the growth goals that you have, be it for revenue, be it for impact, whatever it might be. What's the one thing that you would like to solve by waving this one?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, I think one of the biggest challenges is, somebody like me. I've got so many different ideas and so many different initiatives all the time that it's sometimes it's very hard to execute.
Hmm.
And so, to answer your magic wand question, is that if we were able to come up with these great initiatives that we have, think
Mhm.
them through, and then be able to execute and on time, that would be amazing.
Hmm. Execution, but also on time execution for all the ideas. Interesting. Have you found that the ideas often get like stuck in a bucket? Like they're all in the idea bucket, and it's hard to pick which is the right one to prioritize to actually get the
Absolutely.
results.
Yeah, and I think that, I'll be honest, I think I'm a big culprit of that.
Mm,
I'm a big culprit of that because I'm somebody I'm always thinking about the future. Like, what is it going to be like in a couple of years? How are we going to stay ahead? And I'm coming up with these ideas, and I've gotten much better, by the way, of not like emailing people over the weekend or texting people nonstop.
mhm.
But even my I've got a fractional CRO, and just the other day he's like, "Hey man, you got a lot of great ideas, but we got to kind of slow down. We got to kind of
Mm,
slow down, and then we got to reorganize them and really look at, like, what are some of the top priorities that we could actually get done." Because if you don't, if you try to become the jack of all trades and master of none,
mhm,
then that's what happens. So I
mhm,
think sometimes uh, slowing down a little bit, really focusing in on one or two initiatives, um, and making sure that those initiatives are have the most impact for
yeah,
growing
right.
revenue, or
Mhm,
product, whatever. get those done, get those to the finish line. Now, there's never a finish line. They're always going to iterate, but
Yeah, for sure.
you can't just start and stop things all the time. So this is good therapy for me. Thing is,
Awesome. Damon,
I hope that answers your.
no, that does. It's awesome. Yeah, it's a great answer. And I have one final question here for you, which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you,
Okay.
and they had no idea who you were. But I think it's going to be very fitting because you kind of touched on it earlier. So are you ready for the question?
Yeah.
Here it is. Who has been a mentor that has had the biggest impact in your career, and what did you take from them?
I would say the mentor who's had the biggest impact on my career and what I took from them has to be my father. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. But I literally idolized him for many reasons. And what I took away from him is that he always started out with trust in people. Yeah, and there were several times that he got burned, burned in the business world by trusting people, but it never stopped him from continuing to trust. And because of that, I feel like he was always surrounded with great people working with him. The other thing I took from him was not to be risk adverse. You got to go out there and you got to take chances. And also, if you're going to grow as an organization, you can't be afraid to spend money and try things again. So those are three key things that I learned from my dad, as well as he was a great storyteller, a great visionary. I don't think I'm as good as he is with that, but I always would go to like these board meetings and there'd be hundreds of people there, and he would, or not board meetings, but shareholder meetings, and just how he was able to talk about these moonshot goals and the directions they were going in. So learned a great deal from him. Final thing about him, which I really appreciated and I learned, is that he treated everybody the same, whether it was a senior vice president at Morgan Stanley or it was a coffee shop barista. He liked talking to everybody and treated everybody with respect. And I really think that is super important because, I've been around, I'm sure you have too, some very successful people who think they're better than the little guy or just disrespectful. And my dad was never like that. And that was a way I was raised by both my parents. But those are, I think, 5 things that I learned from him that have really helped me throughout my personal and professional career.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm very glad that you had such or more than just one point there, because one, awesome to hear that it's your dad, because anytime I speak about my dad as well, I start getting emotional. So I try to stay away from it. But it's great that you're bringing these things up, because I think it's one of the things that oftentimes people just overlook. But it can be so important in driving us and learning from them. So yeah, phenomenal answer. I couldn't ask for better. You can see I'm getting as well. But Damon, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible conversation. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, about the business? Of course, shout out the book, the podcast, whatever you want.
Sure. I would say connect with me on LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn. Also, check out my podcast, the Learn It All podcast. I really enjoy having guests on with that. And finally, I would say go to learnit.com. You can check out what we're doing there.
Amazing. Damon, thank you so much for your time. And for everyone else that's watching, I will see you on the next one. Take care.
Thank you.